Buying the first CRM for your business, there are few decisions that are more important than this one. Let's learn how a CRM consultant approaches this crucial purchase on this episode of Closing Time. Thanks for tuning into Closing Time, the show for go-to-market leaders. I'm Val Riley, VP of Marketing for Unbounce and Insightly. Today, I am joined by Jason Kramer. He is the CEO of Cultivize, a CRM consultancy firm. Jason, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Val. Happy to be here.
At last count, there were more than 1,700 CRMs on the market today. Now, most of those are niche players for specific industries, but even with that, that is a very large number.
Val, there are so many options, and the reality is that a lot of people are looking at sometimes the features and benefits or the shiny object syndrome, and another kind of issue, in my opinion, is like the freemium model where you're going to sign up for something that's free, but then you don't realize the costs involved and what it really can do. And sometimes it then becomes a little bit difficult to get out of that free tool because it's actually expensive. And we all know moving from one CRM to another, it's not impossible, but it's just a real headache sometimes.
Yeah, it's not something you want to do frequently if you can avoid it. So Let's get into it. So what are some key questions a business should ask when they're seeking out their first CRM?
Well, I think before they even get into looking at any software, it's really an internal conversation. So it's understanding who in the organization is going to be using it. Is it sales? Is it marketing? Is it operations? Is it your customer service team? Finding out what their needs are and how the use cases might kind of flow, if you will, I think is a really important step. I think the other thing to think about is in terms of who's using it, where are they using it? Are they using it at a computer? Are they using it on the phone? How often are people jumping into software and then it's like, oh, wait a second, our whole sales team is mobile and there's no mobile app. Now what? And so you really want to understand like how they're going to use it in terms of, sitting at a desk or being on the road. Another thing too, they should be considering is support. I think is something that's often overlooked in the beginning of the research process. Most companies, if you're going direct, are going to provide technical support. And while that might be okay, if you have a technical question, maybe your question is not technical. Maybe it's, hey, we're going to be doing a webinar or doing this trade show or running this new AdWords campaign. What should we be doing in terms of the CRM to leverage it for this effort? No technical support team is going to be able to answer that question. And so whether or not you just work with a consultant like Cultivize just for your research or it's going to be an ongoing relationship, I think having a consultant that can help understand and be of an asset to those types of questions that'll certainly come up is really vital. Another thing also, I think, lastly, and there's a lot of them. In fact, on the Cultivize website, Val, we have something called the CRM Fit Assessment, where we go through, it's a free 1-hour consultation, sometimes a little bit longer if needed, which is okay. But we go through at least like 30, 40 questions, really drilling in more to than what we even have time to discuss today. But I think the last one, I think that's most important out of all of these is scalability. So in other words, are you looking at a CRM that's going to fit your problems and needs today, or are you looking at something that is going to fit your needs a year or 2 years down the road? And what I mean by that, Val, is let's say you have a sales team of 2 people, and you're like, oh, Pipedrive, all these different tools are kind of small, they're cost effective. I have a small team, it's perfect. But if you're trying to invest in your company and grow, and you expect by the end of next year you're going to have 10 salespeople, that product may no longer be a fit. So rather than trying to be budget conscious, you really want to be looking at the future and kind of what you want to grow into versus growing out of.
Great advice. Yeah. I mean, you have to approach tech as the tech's not going to solve the problems, right? The people are going to solve the problems. So let's make sure we're solving for the right thing.
Yeah, that's right.
So when it comes to pricing, you've touched on this a little bit. What are some common pitfalls that people fall into when they're buying a CRM?
Well, I think one is for sure, when you look at demos, you're looking at typically, example platforms that have been built out, and it's, unclear on kind of maybe sometimes what those capabilities are and what's included. So I think one of the biggest pitfalls, especially like I mentioned before on the freemium, is the free version is extremely limited. So I think that's one aspect is like what features are included in the pricing. And then I think the other thing is scaling, right? So a lot of these platforms might be kind of relatively low in terms of cost, but they're only allowing for, let's say, 1,000 contacts, which is a really low number in the world of business. So what happens to the pricing when you have 10,000, 20,000 contacts? And it might get cost prohibitive. So it's really important to kind of look at what all the different pricing is. Is it priced on user? Is it priced on the number of contacts, the number of emails you send? Every platform operates a little bit differently. And I think the other piece of pricing that is usually most underlooked is integration. If you have other software, is this software you're going to buy, the CRM, going to charge you to integrate to other systems? Does it offer integration? And so that's something also that isn't typically not asked in the early stages of when you're doing your research.
Yeah, great advice. Total cost of ownership is something that is often overlooked. And when you think about total cost of ownership, you're trying to position it as, hey, like not just the license fee, which is very prominently displayed on the website, but what else goes into the total cost of ownership? So you mentioned integrations, you mentioned contact limits, you mentioned support. Are there any other things that you wrap up into that total cost of ownership piece?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, so a big one is the time and energy to create the actual CRM, to customize it, and also the content, right? So if you're buying a CRM, let's say to nurture your leads, that's one of the common things that most businesses are trying to do now is educate people through that long sales process. Who's going to write the content? Who's going to design the emails? Is that an internal person you have? Or do you have to hire an external marketing agency or a copywriter or a graphic designer? So those are all things that you typically don't think about when you're buying a new CRM. I think that's really common on like the social side, even though we're not talking about CRM, but you buy a new piece of social media sort of posting software to make life easier. But it's like, well, who's going to create all the content? If you want to post, twice a day to make really good content, you need a team to do that. And so I think those certainly things are definitely for sure overlooked.
Do you find as a CRM consultant that some of the requests you get really bleed over into what is more considered to be part of a marketing automation platform? And do you see those two platforms kind of merging more in the future?
I think they're merged already, personally. I mean, a lot of platforms, you mentioned HubSpot, Constant Contact, as we were talking before we started the call, bought a company 3 years ago called SharpSpring, which is a really powerful CRM and marketing automation and even sales enablement tool. There's a lot of them out there already, but so I would actually make the argument, if you want to call it that, to say that your CRM should be able to do marketing automation. It should be able to do sales enablement. Otherwise, you're going to have siloed tools. And I'm not talking bad about anything. There's a lot of great tools out there, so I don't want to come across the wrong way. But like a tool like Klaviyo is really good, but it's not a CRM. It's not a sales enablement tool. It's a good marketing automation tool. And so, well, how are you going to connect all that data into your CRM? And so that's something I think that's really important because it just makes life easier when all the data lives in one place, quite honestly. It's less headache.
Absolutely. I'd like to throw Insightly into the conversation. I'll put
Insightly. Yes, of course, Insightly. Well, that goes without saying.
It is a joy to be on a platform where the marketers can see what the salespeople are doing and the salespeople can see what the marketers are doing. And it's not a separate login, right? Like we're all on the same platform where we all share the same data. We're not throwing data from one platform to another after some, random milestone has been hit with that lead. It's when everything is together, it really does align teams in a different way.
Yeah, and I think the most powerful thing, I mean, yes, align teams, because we all know, usually it's kind of like, headbutting when it comes to marketing and sales in organizations. And quite frankly, they don't always communicate that well.
No, you're crazy. No, I'm just kidding.
It's all like, I think it's like the brother-sister rivalry or the sibling rivalry, like blaming each other. I got 2 teenagers, so I know what that's all about. But anyway, point being is that you could also make effective decision, right? You can make decisions, say, okay, this is working, this isn't working when it comes to marketing or sales. And so having that data is really going to allow a company to make very important decisions, which right now, quite honestly, most companies are running blind and they can't make those decisions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Access to data in an organized way, would just solve so many problems. So I was going to say, when searching for a CRM, what's one question or one tactic or one feature that people often overlook?
To add to what we've already talked about, I think customization is another thing that people often overlook. We see that a lot. We've been working, even this summer, we acquired a handful of home service-based businesses. So a roofing company, a pool construction company. And while there's tons of, you mentioned before, thousands of different options, there's a lot of CRM software customized to the dental industry, to like home service, to like all these different industries. A lot of them, some of them are okay, but most of them that I've seen, you can't customize them. It's very difficult, or it's complicated, and the user interface is not as ideal, if you will. And so what we find is, even though the cost might be low for those, the customization is difficult. And when there's no customization, Val, you know what happens. We're both in the CRM world, right? Now you're forced to change the way you do business to fit your software versus the software adapting to the way you do business, which nobody wants to do that. I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's one of the aspects of Insightly that's super interesting is how much the guardrails are down and people can customize. And some businesses honestly want those guardrails up because they don't trust their systems, they don't trust their people. And so really comes into the choice of what type of software you're looking for. Are you looking for something that's super customizable, or do you not have the capacity for that? And maybe they need something right out of the box that they can just plug and play. So let's commiserate over a statistic together. It's from HBR, and it is saying 72% of CRM implementations fail. So we've both been in the trenches with CRM. Why do you see this is happening, and what do you think can be done to improve it?
Well, I think that, sometimes the decision to buy a CRM is coming from, senior leadership, or, the CEO, who is really not going to be using a CRM. So they're, buying a piece of software because their pal over at another company has it, and they're like, hey, this is great. And they're buying it for emotional reasons and not practical reasons. I think another reason they fail is they don't really fully comprehend what it's going to take to onboard that piece of software and to adopt it into their organization. And so if there's not somebody in the company that is going to be what I call the champion to be behind it and to keep everybody accountable, it's never going to work. And so, a lot of times CRMs are brought in, oh, we need this tool for the sales team, but then the sales manager's never going into the CRM themselves. Well, if the sales manager's never going in, why would the sales team go in if no one's going to check on that? So it really has to be from the top down that you have buy-in, and they recognize that there's going to be a need for this, and there's an accountability system in place to make sure that everybody that is expected to use it is using it and is being productive with it.
You had a tactic that you mentioned that I thought was quite brilliant, actually. It's when you're trying to get CRM adoption, you mentioned maybe piloting with a couple of reps, really getting them involved and excited and showing success, and then subsequently doing a rollout.
So a lot of times it's interesting. So there are organizations we work with that will have all different types of people on the sales team. Most of the companies we work with have a sales team, I'd say, of on average 5 to maybe 30 people. And so when you have teams that are mid-sized or a little bit bigger, and of course, there's companies out there with teams of hundreds of salespeople, right? We both know that and work with them, Val. But the point being is that you're going to have people that are sort of set in their ways, right? So I always like to use the example of, you go to the gym and you've been working out for years, but are you doing it the right way, right? And are you getting results? And you may not be, right? Some people are. And so the people that are set in their sort of bad habits, it's going to probably take them longer to adopt because they're used to writing things down on paper. They're used to using their Google Excel sheet, and it's hard. And in their mind, it's like, oh, this is extra work. It's double data entry. It's not going to make life easier. It's going to make life harder. And so what we find in those scenarios is we get, just a handful of people on the team that are really excited about the new CRM, get them going. And then typically what we see is after anywhere from 60 to 90 days, the other team members that are not using it, they're like, hey, why is David getting more leads from us? Or why is this happening? And you're like, well, because they're using the CRM and they're creating, they're putting people into these nurture campaigns, they're closing more and they're getting more appointments booked and they're getting more callbacks. If you want all that, we can do that for you. We just have to get you going in the platform. And so it also creates motivation, but it also allows the people now that have been in that pocket for the last few months to sort of become subject matter experts internally. So if Mary or David or whoever needs help, you have other salespeople that are really comfortable now in the platform that can help them in addition to the Cultivize team helping as well.
Nice. A little peer pressure never hurt anyone, right?
No, a little competitiveness, why
Exactly.
not? Yeah.
So I think you mentioned that you have a CRM fit assessment on your website available and it's free. So where could people go to find that?
So you could go to the Cultivize website. You can also go the easiest place because Cultivize, it's a made up word, and I like to make things, when I made that name, Val, I was like, it sounds like a great name. The idea was cultivate relationships, seize opportunities. But then years later, you're leaving voicemail message and you're like, it's Cultivize, CUL, and you're spelling it out. And you're like, I probably could have made an easier company name. We've all kind of been there, right? But the easiest place, Val, is to go to afterthelead.com. So afterthelead.com has information about what we've been talking about today. You could sign up for our newsletter. You could download our playbook on how to nurture leads. So regardless of the CRM you have, I'm sure Xylee has something similar. It just gives you all the step-by-step instructions of what you need to do and how to do it. And then also, as the listeners probably have heard today, I love to just sort of talk, educate, answer questions. So they could book a call with me. It's not a sales call. It's just getting on the phone with me for an hour or, whatever they need, answer any questions. So that's available at After the Lead as well.
Awesome. It was great talking CRM with you today, Jason. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Val. Yeah, it was really great.
And thanks to all of you for tuning in to Closing Time. Remember, you can sign up for the Closing Time newsletter to get this show delivered to your inbox. Just click the link in the show notes below. We'll see you next week.